All right. Today, before we go to the message, and maybe we won't even go to the message, depends on if I get crazy. And why not? Everybody else is crazy these days. I want to talk about the 4th of July. I want to talk about what's going on in our world. Not really from the political point of view. Sound weird? I think there's something going on, and I disagree with what most people I'm hearing are saying is going on. So I worked it out in my head, and this is what I want to say. Christian commentators of late are saying things like, "It's revival or bust, man. The devil and his demons are driving all this chaos. It's the devil. And this is the judgment of God." Well, I'd like to add a slightly different point of view to that, if I could. God made a covenant with the Jewish people. In that covenant, he gave laws to live by. The thou shalt, the thou shalt not. Only for the Jewish people, in their covenant, there was a way more than 10 laws, right? The 10 commandments. See, because the word for commandments in Hebrew should never have been translated as commandments. They're not commandments, they're categories. There are 10 categories of law. And under those 10 categories are another over 1,000 laws. Now, I know that in Judaism, there's the tradition of 316. That's just a tradition. There's no truth to it. Maimonides brought that to light in the 1200s, in the Dark Ages. It's not too bad of work, though. I mean, he's categorized the laws and whatnot and what have you. But he was set out to prove that which he already believed. You know what I'm saying? And so what he did was he said, well, the name of God numerically adds up to 613. Therefore, there must be 613 laws in the Bible. And he made it so. So let it be written. So let it be done. Yes, so it happened. Yeah, it was talked about earlier. He got that idea from somebody else, but these ideas were way after the biblical period. Way after the Anywho, I digress. Where was I? Okay, so God makes this covenant, and this covenant has laws, the do's and the don'ts. This is if you do this, don't do this, and if you do, you're living in sin. And do this, and if you don't, you're living in sin. It's that simple in the Jewish covenant. So after reading the law to the children of God, you know what Moshe, his real name, said? He said, I have set before you life and death. Life and death. He went on and said, blessing and cursing. Life is the blessing, death is the cursing. You follow what I'm saying here? This is two ways to say the same thing. This is not 4 different bullet points like the Western world likes to do. In the Jewish world, in the world of the Bible, this is 2 different ways to say the same thing because it adds emphasis. Therefore, he went on to say, choose life, that both you and your seed may live. Now, he's not talking about you and your children. He's talking about you and your children and their children and their children and their children and on and on and on. The seed. That which propels you into the future even though you're long gone. Do you know what I mean, kids? The Hebrew and Christian Bible both speak of a concept largely lost in the Western world today. The Bible calls the law God. Catch what I just said? It calls the law God. It calls God the law. This is not to say that it is actually God, but it is an attribute of God. God is gracious, that's an attribute. He is honorable, that's an attribute. And yes, God is the law. Because the law of God, all of those laws that we have that come up under those 10 categories, that's God. That is our God. All right. Now, before you say, Rob, you have lost your ever-loving mind. Sorry, too late, right? You've already said it. The New Testament, in the book of John, speaks of this concept in that it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was God. That's in the New Testament in John chapter 1, verse 1. The law of God was the constitution for the Jewish world. It was our covenant and is our covenant. And the law of the land of Israel at one time, it certainly isn't now. However, there is no place in the Bible where it speaks of God making a covenant with America. Nope, nope, nope. There is no place in the Bible where a man was able to go and initiate a covenant with God. Nope, nope, nope. God initiated the one and only covenant that we know of biblically that he has ever initiated. Oh man, is that going to make some people mad? But hear me out. It's not as bad as you might think. If America had a covenant with God, we would be a theocracy. If we were truly one nation under God, first off, we would have to have some reference as to who that God is, right? I mean, there is no reference. It doesn't say, well, that God is Buddha, or that God is my dog Skeeter, or that God is that carved up piece of stone over there in the corner, right? There's no mention of who that God is. It's just somehow we suddenly became one nation under God. And that doesn't come from the founding, by the way. That's more recent history. Did y'all know that? But if we were this nation under God, we would be a theocracy. And there would be no separation of church and state because we would be a theocracy. So to be correct, the American covenant is between the people of America, the Americans, and the Constitution of the United States. Thus, it is the breaking of the Constitution that is destroying the United States, not the lack of living like a Christian. I know that living like a Christian can line up things with the God of the Bible. It can, because some people still live by the laws of the God of the Bible. And if you reject the God of the Old Testament, as it's called, and you adhere to the more than 1,000 laws that are found in the New Testament, you will in fact line up with the God of the Old. Why? Because all of those laws from the New came right out of the Old. They are the same laws. Nothing ever changed. They just sound different in Greek than they do in English. The bigger point here is that we do not have to get the liberal left to live like Christians to save this country. Right? Because saying, well, we got to go back to the way things were. Well, isn't the way things were the reason why we're here? Say yes with me, because it is. We have Bibles that are so poorly translated that there's very little connection between what it says in English and what it actually said in the Greek or the Hebrew text. Just at times, they're not even remotely the same thing. It's like one language saying up and the other saying down. One language saying left and the other saying right. They are that different at times. So what we need is to follow the biblical example if in fact we're talking to Christians and Jews here. Because the biblical example is that, let me talk to you about this. I hope you understand what I'm saying. The Torah is not the law, it is the law. It's not God in the flesh, if you will. I mean, this little thing right here, that is not God in the flesh. Y'all can't see that, can you? Can they see it from the other one? Yeah. Go ahead and go over here. There. That thing back there behind me. That's not God in the flesh. That is the witness of the covenant. The witness of the witness of the covenant. The Torah is literally the witness. Because it's like I've said before, my wife and I, when we got married, they gave us a marriage document of some sort. And we had to have the preacher guy had to sign his name to it and all that kind of stuff. He acted like he wasn't going to. He thought that was funny, I guess. But anywho, he signed it. We haven't seen that thing in over 30 years. We have no idea whatever happened to it. So are we no longer married? Of course we're married. Why? Well, because you didn't get a divorce. Well, that has something to do with it, sure. But we're still married because our covenant was not on that piece of paper. That piece of paper was a witness to the covenant because it has to be in here. It has to be in your heart. And if it's not in your heart, it doesn't make any difference what you write on that piece of paper. So our example here from the Bible is that God gave his people a law. He established a constitution whereby we could build a nation. And we don't have to go and take out that same constitution and apply it to the nation of America to fix America. It was never America's constitution in the first place. Now, our constitution was built on the fundamental understandings that came from the Torah. It really was, at least in part, not wholly, but surely for the most part, I'll say. So there are some striking similarities, but there's also some very striking differences. And everybody fighting with each other. We're at a place now where the left utterly says, no way, no how are we going to give an inch with you guys. And you don't have the right to not give in to every one of our demands. I mean, they're just they're bang, 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 clash, clash, clash. But even the liberal left, the people who are not just out of their mind with this insanity that's going on. I mean, there is some serious insanity running amok out here in this world. This whole thing about 72 genders. That is insanity. If you believe that, you need to seek help right now. You are out of your ever-loving mind. And that's not because I'm a Christian, because I'm not a Christian. It's not because I am a Jew, which I am. It's not because I'm religious, which I am. It is because it's true. There are not 72 religions. And Oxford, shame on you for setting up classes teaching that nonsense. Shame on you. Shame on you, Harvard. Shame on you, Princeton, Yale, and everybody else doing this stuff. Shame on you. And those people who are going around espousing, is that the right word? This nonsense all over the TV and the interweb and all of that. Shame on you. You will never get to the truth through a lie. Ever. The end will never justify the means. Most people don't even know what that means. I've run that across a whole bunch of 20-somethings, and not one of them knows what that means. They can't figure that out in their head. But in the end, you cannot lie your way to the top and sleep well at night. You will have to have some help. But there is a way to fix this. There is a way to fix this. everybody, whether left or right, let's go right back to our Constitution. Because America is, in fact, the greatest country that has ever existed. Oh, but we're founded on slavery. No, we weren't. That's a bald-faced lie. And everyone, the people who wrote the 1619 Project know good and well it's a bald-faced lie. It's a bald-faced lie. You know what a bald-faced lie is? Same kind of lie that you tell when you say someone doesn't look fat in those jeans. A lie is a lie. That doesn't make any difference. But we got to get off of this stuff and figure out how to fix things. And I know just exactly what we could do to fix it. I've said it several times. We all need to go back to the Constitution. This country was founded on the Constitution. There were some slave owners who wrote that Constitution. That doesn't make that Constitution a piece of garbage. Because our Constitution as Jews was written by a murderer. A murderer. Moshe was a murderer. And the stuff written by David, he was a womanizer. He got another man's wife pregnant and then murdered him to cover it up. The other guy that, Shlomo, who wrote stuff, not only was he a womanizer and married to, 1,000 wives? Wow. He nearly lost his ever-loving mind. He went Looney Tunes. He came back from the brink, sure, but he was out there for a while. No one's perfect. No one. And you can't show me a single nation ever created, ever in the history of this planet that didn't have slavery. It doesn't exist. We all had slavery. But you can only show me one nation on this planet. I shouldn't say, I think there's two. In fact, I know there's two. You can only show me two nations on this planet who ever got rid of it. And you live in it. You live here. America. Europe did it as well, via England. After we did. And it wasn't, there were some black people who fought in that war. Several hundred of them. But the vast majority who have fought in that war, who believed in getting rid of slavery, who believed in it to the point where they would pick up a sword and stab and kill their own brother, their own father, they were white people. And there's not a black person in this country today that would be free had it not been for the help and the belief in the horror of the idea of enslaving another man if it hadn't have been for the white men. So there is no legitimate argument. There is no systemic racism in America. There used to be. There was. We saw it all on television every night for a very long time back in the 60s. I will never forget it. I will never forget how horrified I was to see white men take water hoses and turn it on. I'm talking fire hoses, and turn it on and wash little black kids down the street with it. It's not a water slide. It was hurting them. It was tearing their skin off of them. I don't never forget how horrified I was the first time I saw white men unleash dogs, those German Shepherd dogs, on little black children. Yeah, there was some systemic racism back then. And you know who's put a stop to it? White men. Because when we realized that there were still white people doing that crap, I didn't know about it. Nobody that I knew about it. I didn't live in the South. But as soon as we found out, we did something. And we did something significant. No, there's no systemic racism. There is no law that says you have to guess the number of jelly beans in a jar before you can vote. It used to be. It was a Jim Crow law. We got rid of that. Yeah, we did. The white people did, because the black people couldn't get it done. They were an extreme minority. And what's worse, because of what they're doing to themselves now, they're a bigger minority. 90% of all crime committed is committed by a black man. 90% of it. That's why our jails are messed up, predominantly black, because they're the ones doing the crimes. They are. And there is no law making them do that. There is a systemic problem, but it's the destruction of the family. And it's starting to happen to the white people just as much as it's happening to anyone else, because we keep pushing abortion. And these boys are growing up in homes without fathers. Or like I did, I either had a father that ignored me or a father that beat me. You know, stepfathers. I didn't do any of that. I didn't turn to crime. And it wasn't because I had some white privilege. Nobody ever gave me anything, ever. My mother used to sit me on one leg and my sister on the other, and the three of us would cry ourselves to sleep at night because we didn't have any food. We didn't get food because we were white. We didn't get a place to live because we were white. We didn't get a car because we were white. We didn't get free medical help because we were white. None of that ever happened because we were white. But I will admit to this. I got some jobs because I was pretty. And don't tell me it's a white thing, because I guarantee you, Halle Berry and what's that guy's name? Denzel. I knew you'd know. The two of them have gotten plenty of work because they're pretty. That ain't the same thing. But we can do something to fix this. We can realize that everybody doesn't have to live by our standards. But it's going to happen on both sides. The left cannot tell us that we have to live by their standards. Phooey on that. But at the same time, the Christians can't tell anybody that we have to live by their standards. Phooey on that. And at the same time, us Jews, which is not something we do, we don't tell people how to live by our standards. There's some of us, I'm sure, that do. There's always some exception to every rule. But as a rule of thumb, we don't do that because we're always the ones that get blamed. This white-black stuff going on, it's just a matter of days until everybody's going to turn on the Jews. This is some scary times for us because we've been here before. And it always somehow turns to us. Somehow we're the one that when everybody's disagreeing and fighting with each other, to get them all back together, they turn on us. So if you're a woman, you're black, and you're Jewish, look out. You got it bad. Anyway. Oh, cranky Snickers. Oh, man, I really messed that up. I hit a button and did some weird stuff. So all we got to do, people, is live by the Constitution and let it be the God that rules things. And by that I mean everybody. We got to stop the Supreme Court from making laws in the Supreme Court. They're not supposed to do that, and they know it. And we need to make them, we need to have that fix it so that everything is based on the Constitution, because they're not doing that anymore. They're not even attempting to. So that needs to be fixed. Our White House needs to be fixed. And no, putting a Democrat in there is not what I'm talking about. No. We have a buffoon in there because the people that went before them, the Republicans and the Democrats, were criminals. At least the buffoon is not a criminal. He's not after our money. He's not out there trying to make this some kind of money for himself. He's just trying to make a name for himself. I can live with that. But we got to fix that, sure. And we got to fix this Congress. What in God's name is going on? Last year we lost, half of the House and Senate? They just all went home. Republicans. They just all went home trying to help the Democrats win, I guess. I think there's a lot of corruption going on. And there are things we can do about that. If you want to know, give me a ring and I'll tell you what we can do. That's beyond what I'm wanting to talk about. All I'm wanting to say here, on the 4th of July, when we're not out there celebrating it because of this nonsensical stuff going on with the COVID, and it's nonsense. You don't need a mask in your car while you're riding on a ferry. Jeepers. And you don't need a mask outside. If you want to wear one, wear one. But don't tell me I have to. And don't tell me that the hospitalization is up and then not tell me the other part, it's not from COVID. It's from people who didn't get to go see the doctor for the last 6 months or 3 months, or I guess it's 3 months. Think about how many people haven't been able to go see the doctor in the last 3 months. Of course they filled back up. It wasn't COVID cases. Jeez. Yeah, there's all kinds of craziness going on. Everybody trying to pad their wallets. Everybody trying to pad some weirdly contrived power they think they have. No. There's a thing called a convention of states. We can all join in and we can put a stop to this. There are things we can do, but it's going to have to boil down to this. We're going to have to live and let live like we used to. We're going to have to let people make their own decisions and pay for them however, in whatever way they have to pay for them. Some of your decisions pay off. Some of them don't pay off. We should all have to go back to that time where if you want to be some crazed person running around saying that you have 72 genders and whatever nonsense you want to do, fine, go over there and do that. But don't you put it in the school book, because it's not true. Don't go putting school books in our classrooms telling us that this nation was built on slavery, because it was not. There were 5 or 6 colonies down south that were. Yeah, I'll agree with that. But the rest of this nation? No, not even close. Not even close. So let's stop with the lying. Let's stop with this nonsense. Let's stop tearing down America and building up some guy that stuck a gun to a pregnant woman's belly and threatened to kill her while he robbed her. That guy was put in a golden casket. What did he have? 72 different funerals so that everybody could be a part of it? No, he didn't deserve to be murdered. No, he did not. And nobody says that he does. But to hang your hat on that, to talk about systemic racism that doesn't exist, to talk about defunding a police force, nobody's that stupid. Nobody, except somebody who needs psychological help right now. So let's stop with the insanity. Stop the madness, people. Stop the madness. And let's agree that there is a law, a constitution that's already out there. It created the greatest country on this planet. And all we got to do is everybody agree that that constitution is what we will all live according to. It'll fix it in a heartbeat. Oh, geez. Just stunk up the whole place. I had a whole bunch of other stuff. How much time have I used up?
30 minutes.
I think I'll stop there. I'm going to stop there for the day. I kind of didn't think I would go off like that, but I did. Was trying not to be political. I was just going to try to point out the Bible here, but it got over. But I'll tell you what, we'll just act like this is part 2. There's a verse in Isaiah 62:8. Is it still recording? Okay. The words, some of the words in it are, Yahweh has sworn by his right hand. By his right hand. So what do we imagine? We can see Yahweh, if you don't know, is the king of the universe. He's the guy that created all that is according to our religion. What we're imagining is here he is standing with his right hand up. I swear to tell the truth, so the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me. Right? Let's talk about what this means. Yahweh has sworn by his right hand. If we take a look at Leviticus chapter 26, starting with verse 63, and if you don't know what I'm talking about a New Testament letter in a book they call Matthew. The guy's name was actually Levi. Chapter 26, verse 63. My translation of that Greek text says this: But Yeshua was silent, and the Kohen Hagadol, that's the high priest, said to him, by the authority of the living God. What's the authority of the living God to them in that world, in that time? The Torah. So, according to the Torah, tell us whether you are the Mashiach of God. Yeshua said to him, you know the answer. Yet I say to you, from here on, you will see the Mashiach as a fiery law, and coming with the numbers too large to be counted of heaven on his right hand. Now, this verse is, of course, what they call a remez. It's a hinting back to something that the audience knew, and it's a hinting back to 1 Kings 22:19. Could be 2 Kings. No, it's 1 Kings. And then it's also found in 2 Chronicle 18:18. And it says, and he said, therefore, hear the word of Yahweh. I see Yahweh seated on his throne, and all the host of the heavens standing by him, and on his right and on his left. Sound like what we just read? Of course it does, because that was the intention. He wanted his listeners there to think about that verse. And he said, I'm reading from Deuteronomy 33:2 now. And he said, Yahweh has come from Sinai. It's Sinai if you don't hear that. And has risen from Seir. That's the word for hair, but it's the name of a place. To them. He shined forth from Paran. That's another place. And came with a myriad of holy ones at his right hand, a fiery law for them. We can compare that to by his right hand. This is the Torah, for it is said, at his right hand was a fiery law unto them. That's a quote from the Sonsino-Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Berachot, Folio 6. If Yeshua is on the right hand of God, that would make him the fiery law. Now, you may recall this from my last installment. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word exists because of God, and God is the Word, right? Now, my translation in this, I put together in a special way so that the reader can understand it. You can't see it, but here's the way I put it. In the beginning was the Torah, because what is the Word? What is the Word of God? It's the Bible, right? And so if you're Jewish, what is the Word of God? It's the law, it's the Torah. In the beginning was the Word, the Torah, the Word. And the Torah, or the Word, exists of Yahweh. It doesn't say because of Yahweh, though it could be translated that way. I didn't go there. It exists. What am I saying? Yeah, I did. It exists because of Yahweh. Okay, sorry, I don't know. I got off on a weird tangent there. It exists because of Yahweh. It was in the beginning with Yahweh. It exists because of Yahweh. And it says, Yahweh is the Word. Yahweh is the Word. That which was in the beginning, the Torah, the Word, is Yahweh. Now they say God in your Greek text. Well, what God are we talking about? So let's put his name in there so we all know. Verse 3, because of him, Yahweh, the Torah, the Word. That's the him. In him, Yahweh, Torah, Word, is life. And in that, speaking of the life, is the Mashiach. They call it the light in Greek, the phos, the light of andros, man. We can compare that to Psalm 119, 105. Your Torah is a lamp to my feet, and it lights my Torah observant lifestyle, my path. We can also compare it to, I have caused the heavens and the earth to testify among you this day. I have placed death and life before you, blessings, that's life, and cursings, that's death. Choose life, that your children, not your children, your seed, your descendants from here on will live. It's going to happen if you choose life. And the Mashiach, the light, appeared in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend him. So who's the him at this point? Yahweh, Torah, Word, life, light, Mashiach. Why do you say that, Rob? This is so outlandish. Well, because if you look at Isaiah chapter 43, verse 11, it says, and this is God talking, I am Yahweh, and except for me, there is no salvation. There's no salvation. Moshiach. You guys that know Hebrew hear that? Moshiach or Moshiach. You can't have Mashiach without Mashiach. So what does that tell you? It tells you that God is Messiah. God is the Word. God is the Torah. Messiah is the Word. Messiah is the Torah. They are all one and the same. Yochanan has now laid out that Yahweh, the Torah, the Word, life, light, and Mashiach are all the same thing. He laid that out, not Robert Allen. Messiah came to reinstate the covenant. And the Messiah is the covenant. The covenant is the Word, the written Word that is the, what's the word I used a while ago? Witness. Witness of the covenant. What we have here is not a sin problem. What we have here is not a evil problem. What we have here is a lost problem. What we have here is a death problem. Because what we have here is a nation that has forsaken its law, its God, its Messiah, its word, its light, its life. Because though it's not the Torah of God that we Jews follow, and it is not the New Testament that the Christians follow, it is all of those things for the nation of America. And so if Americans would repent, that does not mean to get down on your knees and say, oh, Jesus, no, oh, God, forgive me in the name of Jesus. Yeah, sorry, it's been so long since I heard that. I forgot how that went. That's not what it is. To repent is to turn back. All America has to do to get right with its God, if you will, with its word, with its Messiah, is just simply go back to living according to that word, according to that witness. And if Americans will all decide to do that, and we'll let the left be what the left wants to be, and the left will leave the right to be what the right wants to be, and the center will be what it wants to be, accordingly, we all follow the boundaries of that law. Our Constitution says that we will not commit murder. It says we're not supposed to commit adultery. We probably shouldn't, or we should take it out. It's, well, I don't know if the Constitution says that, but I do know that the state laws do. And there you go. I mean, all of the states are free to have their different laws. One state can be all pro this, and the other state can be all anti that. They should be allowed to do that. They should not be legislated by a bunch of left-wing liberals in the Supreme Court, or a bunch of left-wing liberals on these, what they're called higher courts, appellate courts. No, those people should not be making the laws. We just need to go back to that. And that, I believe, will save America. Shalom, shalom, y'all.